How will Auburn's next head football coach attack the portal? And does the 2026 Tigers roster have the ability to be the sneaky pick to make the playoff?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
This crossover of Locked On the Portal and Locked On Auburn. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On the Portal and Locked On Auburn a part of your day right here on the #1 sports broadcasting network in the country, Locked On. We are glad to have you. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about Auburn's incredibly unique transition, head coaching search, everything that's going to go on with Auburn in the transfer portal. What are their needs? And lastly, we're going to get to what is going to happen with the SEC. They've kind of taken a step back in terms of the dominance they've had, haven't been in the last couple title games. Is the portal hurting the Southeastern Conference? We're going to discuss all of that with my guy, Zac Blackerby. Even though his Tigers have fired a coach and he's probably got incredible psychiatry bills, I think he's coming around. I think he's more positive now that the coach is gone. I think it's a better day for Zac Blackerby.
Man, yeah, and if last Saturday didn't kind of show who the issue was or what the issue was, when your offensive-minded head coach gets let go and then your offense actually shows up, I mean, what a trippy game that was. But no, I think Auburn fans have hope. Again, whether that guy is DJ Durkin or John Sumrall or Kenny Dillingham or whoever it might be, there's hope on the horizon with whoever John Cohen hires to be Auburn's next head coach.
100% agree. And I told you before the show, they were my sleeper pick to be the sneaky pick for next year's college football playoff. Again, it's all predicated on who you hire as coach. That's
and I want people to know you came to me with that take. I did not beg you to do a show on this, but it does make sense. And I think this past Saturday is kind of an example as to why. We all knew that the defense was talented. We all knew that the defense was good, and we'll see if DJ Durkin is still a part of this defense or not next year. But I think Auburn will do a better job at player retention than a lot of people outside of Auburn are assuming. I think a lot of people are saying, oh, it's about to fall apart. And while that certainly is a possibility, and Auburn is going to lose some guys, I don't think it's going to be as widespread as people think. Is this orange and blue glasses? Possibly, but just talking to some of these guys and, their stance may change after they get a call from other coaches or other boosters of other schools. And, maybe there's an extra zero in an offer, or maybe it's, $100,000 more. And is that enough to say, like, man, I like it here, but I got to do what's best for me and my family? But a lot of these kids love Auburn, and a lot of these kids, they really, really want to be here.
Absolutely. I don't think it will be quite as bad, but I have two questions on that regarding the coaches. Number one, how quickly do you think it'll get done? And number two, we've talked about, when I've come on your show, a number of different candidates that you just kind of mentioned. Do you think any one of them would move the needle with keeping the players there beyond the obvious? Durkin, at least they know. Any of the outside candidates, do you think any of them would move the needle with keeping players on the roster?
Yeah. So let's just go in order there. Your first question about timeline, I'll say what John Cohen said when he spoke to the media last week following, letting go of Hugh Freeze and introducing DJ Durkin as the interim. He understands that the timeline is important. He understands how important it is to have the head coach ready and in place by signing day, which is 4 days after the Iron Bowl. The Iron Bowl is obviously on a Saturday. That following Wednesday, early signing day, that period where you can sign starts. And he publicly declared that that's the deadline. And so we'll see exactly how that falls into place. But that leads me to think that he's got a plan and at least some solid leads and some mutual interest with a few parties you'd have to assume there. Then as far as the other question, is there a certain candidate that would help with retention more than others? That's tricky, Brian, because I do think there is elements of DJ Durkin needing to be involved, whether he's the head coach or he stays on staff as defensive coordinator. I think that's going to help on the defensive side of the football. These guys like playing for him. They found success on the defensive side of the ball while playing for DJ Durkin. But on the other side of it, when you look at the offense, like, I do think they need to bring somebody in if they want to go the offensive coaching route, which is what they've done the last few times, and if they get a guy that is kind of known for offense, does that excite Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, Jeremiah Cobb, a slew of offensive linemen who are about ready to kind of take that step into being starters in the SEC? You got to think that would have an impact. So it's kind of tricky, and it might vary based off what side of the ball we're talking about.
That's a fair point. I think some
roles. Also, Brian, sorry to cut you off, but like if you hire an offensive-minded head coach and they keep DJ Durkin on staff, is that the perfect recipe? I don't know.
I think that's the least likely outcome, because I think Durkin will either be the head coach or he will be elsewhere, but that's just human nature. Summerall is the one that intrigues me. He coached at Troy. I don't know how long, but he was there. Mm-hmm. And he also has ties to the South in general. He's played at Kentucky. He's from Texarkana, Texas, originally where he's born. Like, he's been in different spots in the South. Yeah.
He was on Ole Miss's staff for a little bit, I believe.
So, like, he's recruited in the spots that are most important. Like, Auburn recruits in Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama. Like, that's all familiar turf to him. I would think they would be pretty cool with somebody that at least kind of knows the lingo. He's going to sound like them. Like, Troy's only a couple hours from Auburn. You know, it's not that big a deal. So I think he would be a natural. But anybody else that you think is like a fit, like he's probably the closest, if I had to guess. Anybody else that you think's got enough ties that players would almost immediately feel, okay, I can relate to this dude?
Yeah, Summerall's probably my 2 in my like realistic wish list. Got to add the word realistic. And some folks may say that this isn't realistic, but like Kenny Dillingham, it would be my first call at this point. But I don't know how realistic that is. And there does seem to be a little bit of chatter, but the speculation is that chatter is for him to position himself to get a raise, which that's all part of the game in this coaching carousel, right? Agents win, coaches win. That's just part of it. So Summerall's certainly up there. I think Eli Drinkwitz would be an awesome move if Auburn could pull that off. You're starting to see him get tied more to Florida, which I think makes sense for Eli. I'm on an island here, so we don't have to spend a ton of time on it, but I'm a little surprised how little chatter there's been about James Franklin.
Me too.
You know, I was talking with other Locked On folks, and they're like, yeah, I think all the folks you just mentioned have more upside than James Franklin. And I'm like, maybe, but we do know that James Franklin is capable of getting to the college football playoff, and Penn State is kind of in a similar situation positionally as Auburn when it comes to, you know, where Penn State is in the Big Ten and where Auburn is in the SEC. I think there's some similarities there. You got to stretch and turn a little bit, but I think there are some similarities there. So I've been a little surprised at how many people have turned their nose up at James Franklin, but that doesn't seem to be a legitimate option. So John Summerall is the name you heard first. It's the name you've heard most often. And right now, I think that's the most likely option for Auburn.
That wouldn't surprise me. When we come back, I want to talk about what James Franklin or Summerall or whatever they would need to do, because the portal window, there's only one. You don't get to go through your first spring ball. It's kind of a disadvantage if you're the new head coach. We're going to talk about that next here on this crossover Locked On Auburn and Locked On the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the Gametime app because college football is back and it couldn't be more exciting. Tailgates, rivalries, and the energy in the stands. There's nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets to an Auburn game or anywhere else can feel a little bit more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, and prices that can change after you see the original one jumping out at you at the checkout. That's why I use Gametime, an app that I actually just bought 2 tickets to go see my alma mater, Indiana, play some basketball and get ready to go see them play. And the app makes it really easy. I was in and out in 5 minutes. That includes inserting my credit card information, and that includes searching the name out, Indiana. That includes finding the game I wanted, finding the seat, looking at it, the seat view, everything. Gametime app is actually very, very easy. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Gametime app today. Once again, we have Mr. Zac Blackerby joining us from Locked on Auburn, and I have a rather fun part of the show to bring up. It is informational here. I'm sure most Auburn fans who follow the program closely over on Locked on Auburn, there's only one portal window. This is probably a year too early for the next head coaches. Like, you'd really like to have a spring window for any coaching change to assess your roster, etc., but you're not going to get it. There's one window, January the 2nd through the 16th. So one of the things, if I was Cohen or anybody else involved with Auburn, I need somebody that is not a good evaluator, Zach. I need somebody that is a home run evaluator because I want to hit the ground running. It's a pretty good roster. If you fine tune it in a few spots, it's going to be good. But January 2nd through the 16th is the only window for kids to get in. So once you get to spring ball, it is what it is. What spots do they need to hit on and why?
Yeah. So as far as positions go, I mean, some of this we've got to guess, like what positions could Auburn lose some guys in, and then we do know that some of these guys will go to the NFL. So I guess we'll start at offense. This one I don't think we have to guess. Like, tight end has been a weakness for Auburn
100%.
this year. Some of it's been injury related. Some of it was Rico Walker left. And it sounds like, he could have been a huge asset, but he entered the portal. I think that really surprised them, and they didn't really answer to that. So Preston Howard has been not great this year. Frazier's been banged up, and then, Ryan G's looks fine in the moments where they've chosen to use him, but they seem to want to go with the older guys this year. So you got to think they'll add a tight end through the portal at some point this offseason. Think you probably got to get an offensive tackle. I think they like some of the young guys that you and I have been talking about for a while. Bryant Broderick Scholl, it's going to be about his time to take a crack at it. They really liked what Ty Buster did at tackle in spring, and so he'll be going into his second year of college football. And they've got a few other guys that I think are going to be able to compete, but just as far as getting that guy, that elite left tackle, they'll probably try to get a tackle in the portal, maybe some interior guys too. I mean, they've got a chance to lose their entire starting offensive line. Xavier Chaplin's interesting because he doesn't have to go pro. So do they ask him to leave because the offsides issues it's just been wild. So that offensive line, I think they'll do something there. Running back, they're probably fine at. And then wide receiver, you're probably losing Eric Singleton to the NFL. Right now, I think they retain Cam Coleman. I think they keep Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, maybe some of those guys that are behind them in the pecking order, like a Bryce Kane, if they enter the portal. So you probably need a receiver or two. I think there are some eligibility questions regarding Horatio Fields. Hugh Freeze mentioned when he still had the job a few weeks ago, they're going to kind of explore a medical red shirt for him. Then on the defensive side, like you and I know, you never can have too many defensive linemen, and you are going to lose some defensive linemen to the NFL or to eligibility concerns. So linebacker, I think they're fine. And then defensive back, on paper, they're fine. But if there's a mass exodus because you don't keep DJ Durkin or whatever, then I think it opens a different thing. But you have so many DBs that you can trust right now. I feel like the depth there is going to be okay when all the dust settles. But we're in this weird game where we kind of almost have to guess what the situation is going to be as far as what Auburn's going to need.
I'm not real worried about the defense, whether DJ's there or not, but they've recruited well enough. The only spot, and this is for every team, there aren't enough defensive tackles in college football to even do half the rosters.
Right.
It's just a very unique spot. So everybody could use one, but they got the freshman class at D tackle at Auburn is really good. Some of those guys need to take steps forward. You'd always take a journeyman. They're going to lose the big fellow at edge.
Keldrick.
Going into the season, he's a top 30 pick.
Read a mock draft this morning. They had him going 3rd overall to the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, if he fell to the 20s, it would have to be a fall. You know what I mean?
He's special.
Falk is a really good player.
But you've got a guy like Amaris Williams is good. He's not Keldrick, but he's dang good. And so you got to assume he'll take that spot, as well as Smith, who is on the other side at edge. I think they're going to be fine there. But yeah, I mean, you can't replace Keldrick Falk with one guy.
No, that's a guy that on every play the opposing offense has to scheme against, or else you're going to be in trouble. So that's true. He's as good a defensive player as there is in the league this year. The question becomes, would you go all in do you think if they hired the right coach and he felt comfy, when I mean all in, like they got some serious cash at Auburn, would you go all in on the roster, try to make the playoff year one? I think I would if I had to wean right now, barring, like you just said, and aptly so.
Auburn's going to be in a good spot too, man. I mean, think about all the money that they have tied up right now that, once again, we're guessing on some of this.
Sure.
But you got to think it's going to be freed up. I mean, reports came out that they were spending close to $2 million on Jackson Arnold. I'd be shocked if he was still on the roster next year. And if he is, you got to imagine he's not going to be making that much money. And so, all right, if you put that towards a couple defensive linemen, all of a sudden, like, okay, there you go. You know, do you keep all of those receivers that we just talked about that were part of the freeze 4? Like, those guys are being well taken care of. If any of those guys hit the portal, that all of a sudden becomes money that opens up. Keldrick Falk is not cheap, you'd have to assume. And there's going to be other guys that choose to leave. I mean, this offensive line, I mean, they've added top offensive line targets in the transfer portal for the last few off seasons. Are solid, highly ranked offensive linemen cheap, Brian?
No.
And so you're probably going to lose a lot of those guys too, because of draft purposes, not because they're entering the portal. So I think they're gonna have room, and they're gonna have assets to throw at people. So yeah, why not? Why not try to push? Absolutely.
Yeah, I think if they can get one defensive, quote unquote, difference maker in the front seven, could be an edge guy, maybe it's a detail, whatever ends up coming to fruition, and you get one more player on offense, especially. And I know this is the rarest of the rare. Offensive tackles in the portal are about like finding $100 bills laying in front of your house on a Saturday morning. They just don't exist. But yeah, either one of those spots, why couldn't Auburn go into like week 10 next year in the playoff hunt? I think it's very possible, because quarterback, that's the only question that I don't even want to get into that. That's a guess, because that's who's the next. I don't even want to dive into that until I know who the coach is.
Yeah, and quarterback's interesting. I mean, let's assume Jackson leaves. I don't think that's crazy. Yeah. I don't think that's crazy.
I think that's likely. I think it's likely.
I hope so. It doesn't make sense for him either. Like for him as a human, he needs to go somewhere else. So Auburn's got Mercer this week, and then they play Alabama. For those who aren't aware of Ashton Daniels' situation, he's played in 3 games so far. This is his last year of eligibility. He's got 1 game left, and they can redshirt him. And so the assumption is he's not going to play against Mercer, and he'll play against Alabama in the Iron Bowl. And so Ashton Daniels is coming back. Obviously, Deuce Knight is, the guy. I hope they start Deuce against Mercer in that situation. Is that enough to lure Deuce to stay? We'll see. I think Deuce really likes it here. And then you got Peyton Falzone, who's, the 4-star quarterback from Pennsylvania, used to be committed to Penn State. Are you good with that room? If your QB room is Deuce, Ashton, and Peyton Falzone, I would assume that would be the depth chart order, but we'll see. The way Ashton played last week, I don't know. I think in that situation, you have to get another portal quarterback. Like, I think you need 4. And then do you go get a guy who can compete, or do you go get a guy who's kind of where you're asking to serve, the same role that we thought Ashton was going to play this year? That's interesting. That's an interesting conversation.
If you're going to redshirt Ashton and ask him to come back for another year, I think you got to tell him that he's the guy. Because I would ask that on his side.
You got to beat out Deuce, right?
Or that's the only guy. You have to be honest with him up front and say, we're not going out and spending a bunch of money getting another guy to compete.
Right.
That'd be fair. But if you're honest with him and say anything's open and he decides to come back, that's on Ashton. But my guess is in that scenario, because he killed it against Vandy. He's going somewhere to play. It's just my guess. I would if I was him. He's pretty good. So congrats to him. He played his hind end off
for sure.
Vanderbilt, and he deserves credit.
When
we come back, we're going to talk about that in general. I think Diego Pavia has changed the SEC expectations as well as college football expectations with the portal. We're going to talk a little SEC with Auburn involved here on the portal and Locked on Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, where the NBA is back and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss part of a game or you just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks on your favorite squads. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for an even larger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making a late run in the game. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets. When your first $5 bet wins, head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Zach, I know he is the least popular person on your mind other than you, Freeze, and that is Diego Pavia. But
Sure.
I think he's going to change the expectation, not just in the SEC, but across college football, because my entire life, Vanderbilt has been awful.
Sure.
Other than about 3 seasons. And I'm 52. Okay, that's not a good ratio there.
Sure.
So needless to say, teams expect to be able to win with this just magic sweep from their coaching staff in the portal, which is a terrible idea to think. But Auburn's one of the few squads that can make that move. Like I said, I've said it throughout the show. I'm going to say it again. They are my sleeper pick to make a run at the playoff next year if they hire the right coach in the year. It meshes. It's a lot, but the roster is good.
Yeah.
Who else in the SEC do you think is on the cusp that take it the obvious. Georgia might make the playoff next year. Bama might make the playoff. Outside of the obvious teams, which SEC squads do you think, if they approach the portal correctly, could make that leap?
Well, let's stay in the same conversation as Auburn, just to kind of draw some parallels. Like, I think Florida is going to steal somebody's coach. That's
a good point.
whether it's Eli Drinkwitz at Florida or Lane Kiffin at Florida, I think they become pretty dangerous right away. I think you can say the same about LSU. If LSU were to get one of those guys, which, you know,
100%.
you've heard kind of rumors and rumblings of that. Both of those schools have so many assets and so much influence in their states when it comes to recruiting. You know, maybe you get guys who that's their home state to enter the portal that maybe went out to play in the Big Ten or whatever, and maybe they're interested in returning home. That's a big deal. You talk about Florida and LSU recruits all the time. So they've got influence, and they've obviously got the money and NIL to back that up. After that, I don't really know outside of like the obvious. Like Tennessee's going to keep doing what they're doing. Obviously, Georgia and Alabama are going to be competitive. Does Oklahoma count? I mean, it seems like they're in a situation where John Mateer's probably going to come back and they're going to have some continuity. Like, I think Oklahoma is probably going to be in a spot to be better next year than they are this year. But to stay on the trend of Auburn, I would go Florida and LSU.
The other one I'll throw in is another Tiger, Missouri.
They got to keep Drink.
Yeah, they got to keep him. That's the obvious. If they keep Drinkwitz, they have to have better luck with quarterbacks because they didn't lose one this year. They lost 2. I mean, for the love of mankind, that's rough. But they got the Hardy kids back. They do a tremendous job with evaluating. And they're kind of a microcosm of my overall theme that I brought up with you before the show. Why is the SEC at the top not as good since the portal era really got going? And my theory is that you can't stack depth as much if you're Kirby. Okay. I wanted to make sure I was seeing that right. Like Georgia, by the way, it's funny. I just mentioned Missouri. The best pass rusher for the University of Georgia is playing for the Tigers, but not Auburn. I'm talking about Missouri. Damon Wilson left. Kirby didn't want to pay him. Missouri did. At one point this year, Zach, per Pro Football Focus, Damon Wilson had more pressures than Georgia's defensive front combined.
Yeah, that's insane. And it's kind of wild how Georgia's pass rush for most of the season has not been great. Yeah, I think it's a few things. One, stacking depth. You can't ask 5 stars to sit anymore because they can go be the guy somewhere else. And then also, you know, these top programs like Georgia, I mean, they typically handle NIL a little bit differently. A lot of the guys, you just kind of get paid based off how much, how long you've been there is kind of a big theme of it. And you don't, you can go elsewhere and make more money right away just because the other schools are able to do that. So, yeah, I mean, everything's just so much more fluid now where you can go be the guy instantly instead of being a guy at, you know, one of the more traditional powers. And I think we're kind of seeing all this hit us at once.
I think it's fascinating because the next question to that is, does Kirby or does Bama or any of these other schools? I think LSU is the most interesting because their fan base thinks that anything other than at least a 10-1 season is the coach should be fired. Like that fan base is out of its mind. But which school takes the jump out of the tradition-rich programs? Is it Florida? Is it LSU? Do they dump in again if they hire the right coach? Like if, I don't think this will happen, but if Lane went to Baton Rouge, would they dump in enough money for Lane to win a title in year one? I could see it possibly because it's not like LSU's derived of any talent.
No,
stretch.
No.
So,
yeah, I mean, once again, like the assets and resources that, so many of these schools have is off the charts. So, and look, also, I think there were some for the longest time before NIL, like there were probably schools that were more willing to give money than others. And now that everyone can, maybe other schools have caught up to them.
That's not a maybe, Zach. That is a fact.
All right.
That is a fact. But I think it's hilarious that it's more equal in some of the fan base, especially like Georgia and Alabama. Their fan base is just, they don't know what to do. It's kind of hilarious in a way. But nonetheless, next year, I think will be kind of the turning point because everybody's had enough assessment. There are no more excuses. The word change to Kirby is pretty much a 4-letter word, just using him as an example. But if he doesn't pivot, at some point, they're just going to become a third-place team in the SEC, even though they got a ton of talent, because he doesn't want to pay guys the same way that schools do. That's rough. Damon Wilson, if that's not he's going to turn pro after this year, be a first-round pick, would be my guess. So you got to figure that out. Auburn has done, ironically, about as good a job as anybody in the SEC of paying their stars, from what I understand. Now, you know more about it than I do.
No, I mean, every offseason, it's talking about how great Hugh Freeze has done getting talent to come in and stay here and believe the vision. Now the vision has died. The vision now is, hey, maybe this new guy can come in and save us and kind of, fulfill some of these promises that maybe the previous administration made to you. But yeah. I mean, Auburn has kept everyone, and guys have come after Cam Coleman. Guys have come after Perry and Malcolm and Keldrick and a lot of these defensive players. And, I think a lot of these guys are going to graduate or finish their college careers as Auburn Tigers, which is great.
There it is. I mean, if you got loyalty, man, there's still no replacing that. Money's money. I get it. But if you don't want to be there, you're not going to play up to your.
And loyalty is a two-way street, right? Like pay these guys what they're worth, and you may need to pay them a little bit more because you're asking them to kind of endure a little bit of crap. Like arguably the worst era. It is the worst era of Auburn football in its history. And it's like, thank y'all for being here and being loyal. We need to be loyal back. And they've done a good job of that.
I agree. And I think that's a very good place to bring this to a close. Zach, tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
Yes, however you consume the portal, you can consume Locked On Auburn, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube. Just search Locked On Auburn. We'll come up.
Absolutely. You can find the Portal Podcast wherever you get your pods as well. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and everywhere else. This has been a crossover Locked On Auburn and Locked On the Portal.